Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Drew Rubin. Welcome to another episode of Disruptive Pediatrics brought to you by ChiroSecure. I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but I'll mention it every time. I graduated in 1989 from Life University, and I've been with ChiroSecure ever since. I thank Dr. Stu Hoffman and Dr. Alan Weinstein for this amazing opportunity to bring you more disruptive pediatric topics. And now I want to go right to the slides because I think today's episode is going to be huge for you, as it was for me. So I absolutely love these books. I don't know if you've seen them before. Healing the New Childhood Epidemics and Brain Inflamed by Dr. Ken Bach. But he has been an amazing influence in my life. I've been teaching from these books, especially the Healing the New Childhood Epidemics book, for years, ever since I started teaching pediatrics at Life University in my advanced classes, and certainly in all my ICPA classes. He's the first person who spoke about something called the 4A's. He coined it. The 4A's being autism, ADHD, asthma, and allergies. I never put it like heard it put that way before. And what was so amazing about that is, according to his statistics, that's 1/3 of all American children. So what I love doing in all my classes, whether it's at Life University or teaching for the polyvagal theory or wherever it is, I always emphasize this is how many kids out there need us. But what Dr. Bach has done with his latest book, Brain Inflamed, is take it to one step further. And what he starts talking about is not just the 4A's, but another A, or maybe several other A's, anxiety and autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders. So that's what I want to go into now. And what I want to do is actually, I had an amazing interview with him, and I've taken that long interview and I've cut it down into about 10 minutes or so for you to digest. And then we're going to talk more about those topics. So I want you to understand how important this 4A thing is, because if you think about this, I'm calling it Generation A. Now, I know a lot of people are talking about like Generation C for COVID, and that's to be the little kids. But let's talk about the Generation A right now, which is the autism, ADHD, allergies, asthma, anxiety, and autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders like Lyme disease and pandas and those kind of things. And that's what we're going to get into right now with this great interview. Here is myself interviewing Dr. Ken Bach.
I mean, our kids have chronic disorders. I mean, it never was that way. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's something that's evolved over the last several decades. Yes. And it's horrible. It's horrible. And that's why I look at the underlying, causative factors and things. And interestingly enough, when I moved from there to Brain Inflamed, which just came out here, and the reason I wrote that, and it was 10 years later, because I just didn't want to write another book. I wasn't, some of the guys, they write it, or women, they write a book and then right. And that was a very successful book. But it's like I was waiting till I had something I thought was really important to say. And as I saw lots of families with the 4A's, they brought their other kids. Parents say, can I bring these other kids to you? Maybe they don't have autism, they don't have ADHD, but they had anxiety or depression or mood disorders. And I said, sure. And you realize that the number of kids with that, 1 in 3 adolescents has anxiety.
Yes.
20% of adolescents, especially girls, have depression. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's crazy when you think about it, that 1 in 3 kids has anxiety as an adolescent. So, yes, I would agree with you. The numbers are staggering. And as I've heard you speak, in terms of the autism numbers, it's now basically somewhere around 1 in 45.
Right.
That's what the last figures from these major surveys that are very respected. It used to be in the day, 1 in 5,000, then 1 in 2,500, and on and on. So 2.2%, of kids with autism. I mean, think of what that's going to do to our society in terms of functionality.
Right.
We don't do something about it. So I think you're right. So I would use the word, you're right, staggering, these statistics.
Yes, it is staggering. And I think another thing I thought was amazing about your book, and I bring it up in all my classes, is the concept of the neurotoxic load that our kids are under. So, when we grew up back in the, the day, let's just say the day, when we grew up back, we didn't have...
Probably grew up around the same time, I have a feeling.
Yeah, probably, something like that. So, but I don't want to talk about it. So when we grew up, they didn't have Monsanto-based foods. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't have all the insults that I think the kids are being afflicted with. And so I think the neurotoxicity has increased over the years. And what's your thoughts about that?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, and that's one of the big things is toxicants, whether they be heavy metals like mercury or lead, or they be chemicals, the plasticizers, the pesticides. Yeah, it's really rampant. And the problem is you can't get away from it. And
Right.
the kids can't get away from it. And I really think that they're additive, and that's the problem. And they start early, and they start in pregnancy,
Yes.
and the air pollution. I mean, there's all these studies that talk about this relationship to autism and asthma, and and our environment has just gotten more and more toxic, and it's not changing. It's getting worse, and so I do think that those are huge things, and also stress. I mean,
Absolutely.
again, I know you're very aware of this. That stress is a toxicant. It has all the metabolic and biochemical perturbations of a toxicant, and actually it causes chronic inflammation. There's
Yes.
nice studies about that, and I refer to them in the latest book. So that our kids not only have all these toxicant exposures, and they start off, unfortunately, like 30 to 40% of them getting C-sections. So they start off in an environment with an abnormal microbiome.
Yes.
And so right away, and we know the microbiome is intimately connected, with gut permeability, then the blood-brain permeability. That's the blood-brain barrier permeability. That's a big thing I talk about, which I think is really important.
Yes.
And so, and stress affects all that. Stress affects gut permeability, blood-brain barrier. It causes chronic inflammation. And these kids, you look at our kids these days. When we were kids, you remember, we used to be able to be kids. A combination of a lot of factors, and that's why I think with all these things, the 4A's, it's not one thing. You have to subgroup. You have to figure out what's underneath it, and when you can, you kind of, it's like medical detective work. Figure that out, and then you can put together a program that remediates it. And it's not the same for each kid, and that's the problem. Some people out there try to do a protocol, and it's cookbook, and that's just not gonna do it for most of the kids.
Right, exactly. The same thing what we do within our office is every kid gets a different program based upon their presentation. And that's what people can't, a lot of medical professionals and chiropractors and stuff are expecting. Give me the 1, 2, 3 step. It's not the 1, 2, 3 step. Every kid has different things that we need to kind of look at. And another thing that I thought was super profound in this book that was very radical for me was the casomorphins and the gluteomorphins as a byproduct of DPP4 insufficiency or deficiency. Speak on that, because that blew me away when I read that.
Well, especially with autism now, more than any of them. If you look at some autistic kids, they are totally spaced out, zoned out, and maybe in a quarter isolated. Their eyes may be glazed, they're not responsive. And it may seem almost like, quote, stoned. And then when you able to test these morphine-like substances that actually come from the improper digestion of gluten, which is gluteomorphin, or gliadin, which is a part of gluten, and casein, which is, of course, the protein in milk, you can see in their urine casomorphins and gliadomorphins. And so these kids have endogenous morphines. So it's like they're getting fed morphine, even though obviously it's not coming from, they're not taking a morphine pill or liquid.
Right.
And so in essence, they're addicted as well. That's why they're addicted. So when you take a diet history, as I'm sure you do, and you see that all these kids are craving the typical. They're craving pasta, mac and cheese, grilled cheese, pizza. Some of them just crazy with milk, cheese. So, and they're literally, it's an addiction. And so when you take them off it, they actually can withdraw, and you have to tell the parents that if they go right off of gluten and dairy, you may get a withdrawal, which may be a day or 3, or even up to a week. I've seen, and if the parents know it, they can get through it. But if they don't know it, they freak out.
Oh yeah, they freak out, like, what's going on?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So, but then they come out of it. Then it's amazing. After like 3 days, sometimes the kid comes in, and the kid eyes are no longer glazed, looks at his mother for the first time and says, "I love you," and it's like, mother's calling me crying.
Right, and that goes along with like Lyme disease also, because I know you're in a very high Lyme area, but we're seeing more in the Atlanta region. We're seeing more and more Lyme also. And does that, you think, fits in with this
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, Lyme in Brain Inflamed, one whole chapter is on Lyme and Bartonella.
Right,
There's two tick-borne disorders that really they cause a lot of neurological things themselves, and then of course there is this conundrum as kids and adults, of course, are sick for a long time. Is how much is the actual infection and how much is the autoimmunity, and how much they can both coexist.
Yes.
And even when you treat an infection, you sometimes can kill the bacteria, whether it be Lyme or Bartonella, but then you may have remnants even of bacteria that can provoke autoimmunity, even though they're not, quote, viable and living. So, yeah, Lyme and Bartonella are huge. I truthfully diagnosed that in so many kids that are missed. And that's the shame, because the thing is, that's why I wrote the books, and that's why I'm trying to educate doctors as well, and practitioners, chiropractors, psychologists, teachers, and families, because when you recognize it and you can get the right treatment, you have so much of a better chance of full response. Yes. When I see kids that have had this for 10 years and not treated, it's very hard, Right. I mean, from what goes on neurologically, you do the best you can.
Right. And I think I like your thought process in the Brain Flame book about the immune kettle. How there's like layers of different things, and you can't just focus on a layer in these kids with these autoimmune encephalitis issues. You've got to focus on multiple layers.
Yeah, and the problem is in medicine, I don't know how it is in chiropractic, but maybe it could probably be the same. We're taught basically it's the strep throat kind of thing. You look for the agent. Strep causes a sore throat. Treat the strep, you're done. In chiropractic, they want to get to the one level, boom, done. And but the reality is, for chronic illness, that might be okay but for chronic illness, you can't not think of all those levels. And that immune kettle, actually, I introduced that. My first book was written in 1996.
Really?
96 or 97. I think 97, called The Road to Immunity.
Okay.
And I introduced it there, and I kind of took it back because I think it's so important, and the fact that we need to consider, not everyone is very active or playing a huge role, but you need to consider it. Even hormone imbalances like thyroid or adrenal, and certainly nutritional deficiencies or insufficiencies. And that's the big thing. It's not just frank deficiency, but as you know, there's biochemical individuality and it's insufficiency.
Yes.
But and then all the the allergies and autoimmune and immune imbalance and infections. Infections are huge, but the problem is in medicine, only the infection is dealt with.
Right. It's one piece.
Infect with an antibiotic and then you're done. And most, I hate to say it, most conventional practitioners don't even give, probiotics, prebiotics, Saccharomyces boulardii. So we have to make sure when we do these kind of things that we don't wreak more havoc on the microbiome. Mm-hmm. So it's this whole thing, and I think that's why we thankfully have very good results in some of these tough cases, because I see that either it's been totally undiagnosed, misdiagnosed, or when treated, inadequately treated. You give an antibiotic for 2 weeks, think you treated Lyme disease, but you haven't.
Right.
And then they say they've been treated. So everything else is checked, and so it's no problem, but yet they never checked the co-infection. Mm-hmm. So they had Bartonella, but it was never checked. So these are the kind of things that I think are really important.
So one thing I want to bring out for you all to understand about the power of what Dr. Kenneth Bach has talked about is that when he first wrote his first major book, which was Healing the New Childhood Epidemics, the 4 A's. When he first wrote that back maybe 10-ish years ago or so, around 2010, I think it was, or maybe 2009, autism was already on the rise. ADHD is already on the rise. Allergies, asthma already on the rise. But now, this is the stuff we're seeing now. These are like latest headline stuff in the newspapers. For instance, back in 2016, the U.S. Task Force on Mental Health said that they recommend all teenagers be screened for depression. And then just came out last month, I don't know how many of you guys have seen this, just came out last month, that same task force recommended all children, and this is from the New York Times, you can see the big headline, all children 8 and older should be screened for anxiety, U.S. Task Force says. Holy cow. Every single child from 8 and older should be screened for anxiety, and then every teenager should be screened for depression. What is happening to this country? And here's the thing I want you to understand is not only what is happening to this country, but who's going to take care of them? Who is going to take care of these kids? To me, there's no better person in this world to take care of them than a chiropractor. And chiropractors are, especially those who are brain-based, pediatric-based chiropractors, we are the ones who should be taking care of these kids with depression, with anxiety, maybe co-managing them with whatever they need to be co-managed with. But just as a perfect example, I had a child just a couple weeks ago come in, horrible anxiety, wouldn't even want to leave, for school, always screaming and crying, always having breakdowns, etc. We've been adjusting. Just an interesting thing. Adjusting this kid, no real change after the first re-exam. No real change. Parents are like, I don't know what's going on. We don't see any improvement. I said, keep up, because what we did see improvements in all the parameters that I was measuring. Less primitive reflexes, better eye movements, better balance, better core, better tracking, better posture. All these things were improving. I said, give it some time, right? Because sometimes feeling doesn't equate to healing, right? The healing may come first and the feeling may come later. Just last week, the dad came up to me and said, I'm starting to see tremendous changes. The other day, he was actually playing guitar for the first time in a couple of years and just smiling and all day. And he said, hi to his brother and sister. And these are things that this child was not doing before. So I'm telling you, we are the people who really need to be seeing these kids with anxiety, depression, all these A's, right? The anxiety, the autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders. I see kids with Lyme, PANDAS, which is a pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorder associated with strep, all the time. And I don't know about you guys, but we're seeing a lot of post-COVID like issues, kind of like PANDAS, but maybe call it panic, pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorder associated with COVID, right? Panic. And we're seeing these kids and we're seeing big changes because what's happening is their systems are being attacked by these viruses. They are tanking, and then through adjustments that we're doing and through special neurological exercise and changing their diet, like Dr. Bach was talking about. Now we put all these things together. And that's what I think the brilliance of what he was saying is we have to look at all these different pieces, right? He calls it the immune kettle. We have different layers of things. So it's not just one thing, it's multiple things. But I don't know if you guys have seen this recently, but I just saw this over the weekend. It was an unbelievable movie that's on HBO called Dear Evan Hansen. It's a musical. And it really brought to home how many kids are suffering from anxiety and depression, and how most of these kids are, and just like Dr. Pak was saying, most of these kids are being taken care of by medication alone, right? They're just being given med and let's see how you do. And nobody is focusing on their brains. Nobody's focusing on their nervous system. They're just trying to shut their brains up with the chemicals, but not trying to fix the problems, not trying through chiropractic, not trying through functional neurological exercises, not trying to fix their brains, not trying to change their diets, right? And to me, that look, this is another New York Times article that came out pretty recently. It's life or death, the mental health crisis in U.S. teens. Look at these numbers here that we're seeing. If you look at this thing, the number of self-inflicted injuries has skyrocketed in the last bunch of years. And this isn't even including COVID. This is pre-COVID. The number was skyrocketing already. And here's an interesting thing. Everything else has been going down. Believe it or not, drug use is going down and cigarette use, all that kind of stuff is going down. But we'll look at on the right-hand side, what's going up is screen use. Now, I can't correlate it and say, well, the more screens, the more this. However, another topic I'm going to talk about in a later Disruptive Pediatrics is something I don't know if you heard about, but these TikTok issues that we're seeing kids who are overutilizing TikTok, and they're starting to mimic some of the TikTok behaviors. There's been TikTok suicides, and there's been a TikTok kids with Tourette syndrome. We're going to talk about this at a later one of our Disruptive Pediatrics. It's quite fascinating. And not even taking the pandemic into account, but increasing in feelings of sadness, and feelings of hopelessness, of thinking about suicide. What do we have to do? We have to arm ourselves. We have to listen to stuff like this particular podcast. We have to, webinar. We have to listen to podcasts like mine, where I try to talk about this. I just posted my 456th podcast today. So please check out Chirocast. We've got to get more informed. To me, the polyvagal theory is one of the most important things that we need to understand to really get into the brains of these kids and to try to understand their vagus nerve and how it works. And I have had a great pleasure of talking with Dr. Stephen Porges. You probably saw this in a Disruptive Peds the first time we did one. But if you want to see the full seminar, this is the link to it. It was just an incredible seminar talking about blending of pediatric chiropractic and the polyvagal theory. And of course, I teach for ICPA, so I have to mention that. ICPA is the organization I've been teaching for years. We're about to do a tongue tie seminar, just letting you know, just be aware. So getting back to the final point and wrapping this thing up, I want you to understand, like Under Armour talks about, this is how I'll wrap up every one of these disruptive PED things. Protect this house is what Under Armour says. I say protect our future, protect our kiddos, adjust more kiddos. So if we can understand, in my final wrap up here, if we can understand how important it is for us to take care of our kids, for us to reach the kids now. To me, there's a sense of urgency, and I don't know if I don't know if you can palpate what I am feeling, but I have a palpable feeling in me saying we've got to take care of more kids, and who is going to do it, right? It's not them out there. I can't wait for them out there to do it. It's got to be us. How are we going to reach them? We have to reach them through social media. We have to reach them through our Facebook ads and our Instagram ads and our TikTok things and everything we can think of. We have to reach them through talking to our patients. And like one of my favorite questions I love asking or telling students, especially to ask people, is if they don't have a lot of kids in their practice, you can ask, hey, do any of your kids, or if they're seniors, any of your grandkids have any of the 4As? And the people would be like, 4As, what's that? And you say, autism, asthma, ADHD, allergies, any of them. And you can even add anxiety or autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders like Lyme or Panthers. And they'll say, oh yeah, if it's 1/3 of all American kids have the 4As, 1/3 of all American kids have the 4As, you know that they're going to say, oh yeah, one of my kids or one of my grandkids has this. And what's your next step is get them in. Let's get them checked. And like, well, they don't live here. They live in North Dakota. That's okay. Let me find a chiropractor for you in North Dakota, right? Become the referral machine so that these kids everywhere can get chiropractic care. That's what Disruptive Pediatrics is all about. Disruptive Pediatrics is all about breaking the typical pattern of the back pain, neck pain, car accident, whiplash kind of thing, and changing chiropractic to the brain-based sort of chiropractic care that it should be. Thank you so much, guys. I look forward to talking with you next time. I've got some more great speakers for you. I'm going to talk about this TikTok stuff that I mentioned before. This has been a pleasure, and I love serving chiropractic, and I especially love ChiroSecure for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, ChiroSecure, and I'll see you next time.
Today's Pediatrics show, Look to the Children, was brought to you by ChiroSecure.